from people on the streets to ask you, why do Democrats come off as wimpy and nerdy, and you kind of are wearing glasses right now, and you look like a professor.
Because
I'm not saying you percent
because they are wimpy and nerdy.
Okay.
Well, I think one of the things that Democrats are really struggling with, if we look at them nationally or if we look at them statewide, I think Democrats inherently this election cycle have been worried about actually talking about what their accomplishments have been and where they stand on the issues. I think what ends up happening is that they need to get out there and they need to talk about the positive things that they have done and they have pushed forward, because I think when you match up what our values are as a party compared to what the Republicans are talking about, there's no comparison. And when we look at the low and middle class, in many cases we're going to see during this election cycle, if the polls hold true, that they're going to be voting against their best interest. And I think that Democrats need to communicate better. They need to talk about, initiatives like healthcare reform, which is one of the biggest pieces of legislation, that I will see in my lifetime. And I think that there are a lot of positive things that have been done. When you look at the Obama administration, granted, there's been missteps there, but at the same time, you have to put into perspective the fact that Obama took office when we were losing a tremendous amount of jobs on a monthly basis. The economy was in complete shambles. It
was going to be a depression.
It was like George Bush and Dick Cheney went up to the top of a hotel building and dropped an anvil and said, "Here, catch, see you later."
Well, they kind of
you don't have the ability to turn things around right away. But what you do is you try to do the best you can to enact legislation like the stimulus package. And there were when you have to enact legislation so quickly, it's never going to be perfect.
Right.
But you had to do something.
Yeah.
If you didn't do that, you would see economic numbers right now that would be much, much worse.
I had a friend at the White House at that time, and he said, yeah, they had to save Wall Street too, because even Henry Paulson said if we don't do anything until Bush, ATMs will be spitting out no money in 2 weeks. It was going to be a huge collapse. It was a very scary time.
Yeah.
But being a media manipulator, because I am, Republicans win on symbolism. They do get this symbolism out, and big government and rights being taken away, and it resonates with a large.
They win by making arguments in bad faith.
That too, but you can make an argument no one might not hear, but they're doing symbolism well. It resonates with people, it seems.
Well, it may resonate with people, but the reality of what a lot of the Republican Party stands for today is a question mark, because you never hear a specific policy unless it's standing against the repeal of the Bush tax cuts on the wealthiest 1% of Americans.
They still want to fund Afghanistan and Iraq to the hilt and all that kind of stuff.
Well, Republicans have not been good stewards of money. They talk about fiscal conservatism, but when was the last time a Republican president balanced the budget? I think we are in a situation right now where we are letting a fringe piece of the Republican Party actually dominate the airwaves because they're controversial, they're exciting, and the news cycle doesn't allow us to actually debate issues. And frankly, Democrats have not done a good job coming up with an actual communication platform for everything that they stand for. And when you compare this debate process, Republicans have their set of talking points, Democrats have their set of talking points. There's no reconciliation, there's no in-depth discussion of issues, and you end up in a situation where media coverage is focused on the extreme sides of the parties, and there's no center anymore.
And there's no the middle class is somewhat being drained as we speak.
Yeah.
But to bring it down to the local level, what do you see going on? You're deputy mayor of Princeton Township. We have Republicans are mounting a challenge. You see a difference between like a Liz Lambert and Lance Liverman, between a Doug Miles, a Duncan, or in the borough?
Well, that's another. This it's a microcosm of what's happening on the national level, in the sense that you have Republicans essentially running on one issue, which is the issue of revaluation. It's been a very controversial issue, and there's been a lot of letters from the Republicans that actually talk about things that just aren't even legally possible. But
can you give one example?
Well, when it comes to overturning the revaluation, that can't happen on legal grounds by the township committee. We don't have the power to do that. When the issues that we look at in the local election have centered around reval, but reval is one issue. And when you look at what our party has done locally, we are, as the town, I'm speaking from the township's perspective right now, we're in negotiation with the university for a fair share contribution as we speak. We expect to wrap up those negotiations by the end of the year. We've already formed a consolidation and shared services study commission. We've hired the consultant. We had our first public meeting
Yesterday, the
last
28th,
night.
October 28th.
Right? And at the same time, we are also focused on budget austerity in the sense that we have a citizens finance committee. We had our lowest tax increase in 25 years in Princeton Township this year. But a lot of those things we don't hear about. And also the Democratic Party locally is also very focused on environmental issues and sustainability. You know, there's a big difference in when you start talking about the things that you are actively doing as a party instead of just focusing on one particular issue.
And there's also